What happens when the weakest wolf in the pack holds the power to reshape the entire supernatural world? For Isla Grey, silence wasn't a choice, it was survival. Born an Omega in the ruthless Crimson Veil pack, she learned early that invisibility kept you breathing. Her parents trained her to suppress everything: her voice, her scent, her very existence. While other wolves played and trained, Isla cleaned the packhouse floors, served meals to wolves who looked through her, and dreamed of a mate bond that might finally make her matter. For 23 years, she endured the hierarchy that placed her beneath even the lowest beta, clinging to the ancient belief that the moon goddess paired every wolf with their destined other half. But when Alpha heir Matthias Kane publicly rejected her during the sacred blood ceremony, the most important night in werewolf culture, everything changed. He didn't just sever their fated bond in front of 300 witnesses. He destroyed the magical binding that had caged her true nature since birth. And what happens next? No one was prepared for. The blood ceremony took place beneath the harvest moon, when its copper light painted the ceremonial grounds in shades of rust and gold. Isla had felt the mate bond snap into place 3 days earlier. That undeniable pull toward Matthias Kane, the pack's future alpha, a wolf whose scent of forest smoke, embers, ozone, and steel had suddenly become as necessary as oxygen. The bond hummed between them like a living wire, and for the first time in her life, Isla had allowed herself to hope. She should have known better. The ceremony grounds occupied the heart of Crimson Veil territory, a massive clearing ringed by ancient oaks. Wolves from 3 neighboring packs had gathered to witness the traditional ceremony, where unmated wolves would find their destined pairs under the moon goddess's watchful eye. The air hung heavy with anticipation and the mingled scents of hundreds of supernatural beings: pine and musk, excitement and hunger, dominance displays from competing alphas. Isla stood at the edge of the Omega section, her slight frame draped in the simple gray dress required of unmated lower-rank females. Her dark hair hung loose around her shoulders, and her unusual violet eyes, the one remarkable thing about her, stayed fixed on the ground. Around her, other Omegas whispered and giggled, hoping for beta mates who might elevate their status. None of them felt the pull she did, the golden thread connecting her soul to the most powerful unmated wolf in 4 territories. When Matthias emerged from the Alpha Pavilion, the crowd fell silent. He stood 6'4" of pure dominance, his muscular frame moving with predatory grace. Dark hair, sharp features, gray eyes that could freeze or ignite depending on his mood. He wore the ceremonial black leather that marked him as heir, and his presence made lesser wolves instinctively bow their heads. Their eyes met across the clearing. For one heartbeat, Isla saw recognition flash across his face, felt the bond flare between them, golden and inevitable. Then his expression hardened into something cold and calculating. "The heir has scented his mate," the master of ceremonies announced. Ancient tradition given voice. Isla's heart hammered. This was it. This was where her life finally began. Matthias strode forward, wolves parting before him like water. He stopped 10 feet from Isla, close enough that his scent washed over her in waves, close enough that the bond screamed for her to close the distance. His eyes raked over her dismissively, and the scent of his disgust, bitter and sharp, cut through everything else. "I, Matthias Kane, future alpha of the Crimson Veil Pack," his voice rang out across the silent gathering. "Reject Isla Grey as my mate." Time stopped. The words hung in the air, impossible and devastating. Around them, gasps rippled through the crowd. Rejections were rare, painful, dangerous. The moon goddess herself chose mate pairs. To reject that divine gift was to court catastrophe. "Matthias," Isla whispered, her voice cracking on his name. She'd barely spoken above a whisper in years, and now, when it mattered most, her words came out small and broken. "Did I give you permission to speak?" His voice cracked like a whip. "You're an Omega. Useless. Weak. Did you really think I would bind myself to something so pathetic? My Luna will be strong, powerful, a wolf worthy of standing beside an alpha." He turned to address the crowd. "I will not let a mistake of fate destroy my pack's future." The bond between them began to fray. Isla felt it unraveling, each thread snapping with physical pain. She gasped, pressing a hand to her chest as agony radiated through her body. It felt like dying, like being torn apart from the inside. "Please," she managed, tears streaming down her face. "The bond, it'll kill. You'll survive," Matthias said coldly. "Omegas always do. You're built for suffering." He raised his hand, palm out, and spoke the ritual words that would sever the bond completely. "By my blood and my will, I cast you out. May the moon goddess herself witness this rejection." The bond shattered. Isla screamed. The sound ripped from her throat, raw and primal, as golden light exploded between them. The mystical connection didn't just break, it detonated. Power she'd never felt before surged through her body, wild and burning. For 3 seconds, lavender and morning dew and wildflowers overwhelmed every other scent in the clearing, so potent that wolves staggered backward. Then it was gone, sucked back inside her like a vacuum, and Isla collapsed. She barely registered hitting the ground. Distantly, she heard her mother cry out, heard her father's voice raised in argument. But louder was the laughter. Cruel, victorious laughter from the she-wolf who materialized beside Matthias. Scarlet Thorn. Daughter of the pack's head warrior, beautiful and vicious, with auburn hair and a scent of cinnamon, iron, and blood. She pressed herself against Matthias's side, her perfectly manicured hand on his chest. "Well done, my love," Scarlet purred loud enough for Isla to hear. "Now, nothing stands between us." "Remove her," Matthias commanded, not even looking at Isla's crumpled form. "And make sure she understands. She's no longer welcome in Crimson Vale territory. She has until moonset to leave, or she'll be treated as a rogue." Guards hauled Isla to her feet. Her body felt wrong, hollow, like something essential had been carved out. She looked toward her parents in the crowd, desperate for intervention, for protection, for anything. Her father, Marcus Gray, stood with his arm around her mother, Elena. Both had tears in their eyes, but when Isla reached toward them, her father shook his head. "I'm sorry," he mouthed. Just that. No defense, no rescue. They'd known. Somehow, they'd known this would happen. The guards dragged Isla through the crowd as wolves pressed back in revulsion. Some spat at her feet. Others whispered about what kind of defective Omega gets rejected by her true mate. The humiliation burned almost as much as the physical pain. They threw her out at the territory border with nothing. No supplies, no shelter, no provisions. Just her ceremony dress and bare feet against the frozen ground. Beyond the boundary markers lay the wild lands. Thousands of acres of untamed forest where rogues and worse things hunted. Behind her, the Crimson Vale border shimmered with the pack's protective magic. Ahead, darkness and certain death. Isla took one step forward, then another. She didn't look back. The blizzard hit 3 hours after moonset. Isla had managed perhaps 5 miles, stumbling through underbrush in the dark, her feet bleeding and numb. The temperature had been dropping steadily, her breath forming clouds in the air. but she'd been too focused on putting distance between herself and her old pack to notice the warning signs. When the first snowflakes fell, she almost welcomed them. They were beautiful, delicate, peaceful. Then the wind picked up, and within minutes the world disappeared into a whiteout. She couldn't see, couldn't hear anything but the howling wind. The cold bit through her thin dress like knives, and her hands had gone beyond pain into a dangerous numbness. Her wolf should have helped. Even Omegas healed faster than humans, ran warmer, survived better. But her wolf was silent, traumatized by the rejection, unreachable behind a wall of pain. Isla tripped over a root she couldn't see and went down hard. This time, she didn't get up immediately. The snow was actually warmer than the air, soft against her face. Rest. She just needed to rest for a moment. No, she forced herself up, staggered forward. Dying here meant Matthias won, meant she'd been as worthless as he'd claimed. Through the swirling white, she spotted a dark shape. Structure? Shelter. Something. She lurched toward it, using the last of her strength to reach what turned out to be an abandoned barn. Half collapsed, but still offering some protection from the wind. Inside was dark and smelled of old hay and rot, but it was marginally warmer. Isla collapsed in the corner, pulling moldy straw around herself with shaking hands. Her lips had turned blue. She couldn't feel her feet at all anymore. This was it then. She was going to die in a barn in the middle of nowhere, rejected and alone. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, she felt a strange peace settling over her like a blanket. At least out here, she didn't have to pretend anymore. Didn't have to make herself small and quiet and invisible. The wildlands didn't care that she was an Omega. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the moon goddess, though she wasn't sure what she was apologizing for. For being weak? For being rejected? For giving up? Her eyes drifted closed. The cold faded. Everything faded. She didn't hear them arrive. Warmth. That was the first thing Isla registered. Blessed, impossible warmth surrounding her. She surfaced slowly from unconsciousness, confused by the lack of pain, the softness beneath her cheek. Fur. She was lying on fur. Her eyes snapped open. Wolves surrounded her. Massive wolves, each one easily twice the size of any pack wolf she'd ever seen. They'd arranged themselves in a tight circle around her, their bodies forming a living barrier against the storm that still raged outside the barn. Their combined body heat had created a pocket of warmth that had quite literally saved her life. Isla's breath caught. She counted them slowly, her mind struggling to process what she was seeing. 1. A massive black wolf with silver markings along his muzzle, clearly the leader. 2. A gray wolf with battle scars across her face, her eyes alert and watchful. 3. A russet-colored male with one torn ear. 4. A white wolf so pale she seemed to glow in the darkness. 5. A brown wolf with distinctive white paws. 6. A smaller but fierce-looking dark gray female. 7. A golden-coated male with amber eyes. 8. A black and white wolf with symmetrical markings. 9. A massive charcoal-colored male with yellow eyes. 10. A silver wolf with unusual blue eyes positioned directly behind her. 10 wolves. 10 massive, clearly powerful wolves who could have killed her instantly, but instead had protected her. The black wolf with silver markings, the leader, watched her with an intelligence that went far beyond animal instinct. When their eyes met, Isla felt something shift in the air, a recognition that went bone deep. Slowly, deliberately, the black wolf began to shift. The transformation was nothing like the painful, violent changes she'd witnessed in her pack. This was fluid, graceful, almost beautiful. Bones flowed rather than cracked. Fur receded into skin. In seconds, a man crouched where the wolf had been. He was older than Matthias, perhaps in his late 30s, with silver threaded through his black hair. Scars covered his arms and chest, badges of countless battles survived. He was built like a warrior, all muscle and controlled power, and his eyes held depths of experience that made Matthias look like a child playing at leadership. His scent hit her like a physical force. Aged oak, winter snow, pine and storm, clean and wild and infinitely strong. "We've been waiting for you," he said, his voice rough from disuse, but carrying an authority that made her bones vibrate. Isla tried to speak, but her throat was too dry. The man, this stranger who commanded wolves the size of bears, gestured, and the white wolf padded forward, gently dropping a water skin near Isla's hand. "Drink," he commanded softly. "You're safe here. You've always been safe here." She managed a few sips, the water soothing her abused throat. Who are you?" The man smiled, and something in that expression was both fierce and unbearably gentle. "My name is Thorn Castellan. These are the Shadow Guard, the last of the true dire wolves, sworn to protect the bloodline of the first matriarch." He paused, his eyes searching her face with an intensity that should have frightened her, but somehow didn't. "We've been searching for you for 23 years. Isla Grey, since the night your power was bound." The barn seemed to tilt. I don't understand." "You will." Thorn settled back on his heels, giving her space even as the other wolves maintained their protective circle. "But first, you need to know what you are, what you've always been." He took a breath. "You're not an Omega, Isla. You never were." The words hung in the air. Impossible. "The prophecy spoke of you," Thorn continued, his voice taking on a rhythmic, ancient quality. "When the blood moon rises and the weak are cast down, the silent one will wake. She will be marked by violet eyes and crowned with morning dew. She will come when hope is lost and the old ways forgotten. She will be the storm and the still water. She will be the matriarch reborn." Isla stared at him, her mind refusing to process his words. Matriarch? Prophecy. This had to be a dream, a dying hallucination brought on by hypothermia. "Your parents," Thorn said more gently, "bound your power when you were an infant. They had their reasons. Fear, mostly. Fear of what you represented. Fear of the old bloodlines. Fear of change. They enlisted a dark witch to suppress your wolf, to make you appear as the weakest rank instead of the strongest. The binding was supposed to last until your 30th year." "But Matthias," Isla whispered. "His rejection shattered it early." For the first time, Thorn smiled with real warmth. "Ironic, isn't it? He thought he was destroying you. Instead, he set you free." As if in response to his words, something stirred deep inside Isla, a presence she'd never felt before, huge and ancient and powerful, unfurling like wings after a long sleep. "Hello." "Little one," a voice rumbled through her mind, female, strong, utterly primal. "I've been waiting to meet you," Isla gasped. There's someone in my head." "Your wolf," Thorn confirmed. "Your true wolf, not the terrified, suppressed creature your parents created, but the matriarch Lycan that's been sleeping inside you since birth." "Not sleeping," the voice corrected with a hint of amusement. "Waiting. There's a difference." The presence grew stronger, more solid. Isla felt power beginning to build in her chest, spreading through her limbs like liquid fire. It didn't hurt. It was more like coming alive for the first time, like discovering she'd been living in a house with all the lights off and someone had finally flipped the switch. "It's happening," one of the other wolves, now shifted to human form. A scarred woman with gray blonde hair said with satisfaction. "Finally." "Should we—" another guard began. "No," Thorn cut in firmly. "This is hers to experience. We just bear witness." The power was building faster now, demanding release. Isla's skin began to glow with a soft lavender light, and her scent flooded the barn. Lavender, morning dew, wildflowers, but amplified 100-fold, mixed now with something else. Something that smelled like moonlight and starfire and the dawn of creation. "What do I do?" Isla asked, frightened and exhilarated in equal measure. "Trust me," her wolf said. "Let me show you who we really are." The transformation began. It was nothing like the stories she'd heard about first shifts, the pain, the breaking, the hours of agony. Instead, it felt like shedding a skin that had never quite fit. Her bones didn't snap. They flowed, restructuring themselves with liquid grace. Her muscles didn't tear. They expanded, growing stronger and more defined. Fur emerged from her skin in waves of silver white that shimmered with lavender undertones, each strand softer than silk and tougher than steel. She grew and grew and grew. The barn ceiling, already damaged, groaned as her size increased beyond anything natural. She was larger than the dire wolves surrounding her, larger than any alpha she'd ever seen. Power radiated from her in waves that made the air shimmer, and when her eyes opened in her new form, they blazed with violet fire. "There you are," her wolf said with deep satisfaction. "There we are." Isla, because she was still Isla, still herself, just more, looked down at her paws. Each one was the size of a dinner plate, tipped with silver claws that gleamed like moonlight made solid. She turned her head, catching sight of her reflection in a piece of broken glass, and froze. She was magnificent. Silver-white fur rippled over powerful muscles. Violet eyes burned with inner fire. Strange markings, symbols she didn't recognize but somehow understood, glowed along her shoulders and haunches, pulsing with the rhythm of her heartbeat. She wasn't just a wolf. She was a force of nature, a myth made flesh. "We are the first bloodline," her wolf explained. "We are what all wolves came from. We are the matriarch." A sound built in Isla's chest, not a growl, but something far more powerful. When she threw her head back and released it, the howl that emerged shook the barn to its foundations. The remaining roof beams cracked. The walls swayed. Outside, the blizzard itself seemed to pause, as if the storm recognized something greater than itself. The Shadow Guard joined their voices to hers, 10 dire wolves singing in harmony with their queen. The sound carried for miles, a declaration and a promise and a warning all at once. When the howl finally faded, Isla looked at Thorn, who had remained in human form throughout. His eyes shone with something that looked suspiciously like tears. "She is the matriarch," he said softly, reverently. "The prophecy is fulfilled." Isla tried to shift back, wanting to speak, to ask the 1,000 questions burning in her mind. Her wolf guided her through it, and the reverse transformation was just as smooth as the first. In seconds, she stood on 2 legs again, naked and glowing faintly with residual power. The gray-blonde woman immediately draped a cloak around her shoulders. "Welcome back, matriarch," she said with a warrior's salute. I'm still Isla," Isla managed, her voice stronger than it had ever been. "I don't know how to be what you're calling me." "You'll learn," Thorn said, and the certainty in his voice made her believe it might be true. "We'll teach you. That's what we're here for. That's what we've always been here for." Over the following weeks, Isla discovered what it meant to have a found family. The Shadow Guard became her teachers, her protectors, her pack in the truest sense. Each member had a story, a specialty, a piece of knowledge to share. Thorn, their leader, taught her to channel her power with precision rather than overwhelming force. He'd spent 40 years searching for the matriarch, following fragmented prophecies and ancient clues, never losing faith even when the trail went cold. Kara, the scarred gray-blonde warrior, specialized in combat. She ran Isla through drills with patience and creative insults in equal measure, pushing her to use her new strength and speed effectively. "Size means nothing if you don't know where to put it," Kara would say, right before sweeping Isla's legs out from under her. The russet male with the torn ear was Finn, whose gift lay in tracking and hunting. He taught Isla to use her enhanced senses, to read the forest like a book written in scent and sound. Maya, the pale white wolf, was a healer, the only one among them with the gift of accelerated healing for others. She showed Isla how to access her own empathic abilities, to sense the emotions of those around her, and even soothe their pain. The others each added their skills to her education. Reed taught wilderness survival. Nix instructed in pack law and hierarchy. Ash covered territory management. Storm focused on weather reading and tactical planning. Echo demonstrated communication over vast distances. And Silver, the youngest of the guard, became something like a younger sister, matching Isla's enthusiasm for discovering new abilities. But beyond the training, there were moments of simple joy. Evenings around the fire in the den they'd established, in a network of caves deeper in the wildlands, sharing stories and laughter. Mornings racing through the forest in wolf form, feeling truly free for the first time. Afternoons learning pack bonds weren't about rank and dominance, but about trust and chosen family. Isla's confidence grew with each passing day. Her voice, silent for so long, found its strength. She laughed without fear, argued without cowering, made decisions without second-guessing. The hollow place left by the rejection filled with something better. Self-knowledge, purpose, power that belonged to her alone. And Thorn. God's Thorn. She felt it growing between them, a bond different from the forced connection with Matthias. This wasn't fate's mandate, but choice. Hers and his. The way his scent of aged oak and winter snow made her feel safe and excited at once. How his rare smiles felt like gifts. The electricity when their hands accidentally touched during training. One evening, 6 weeks after her transformation, they sat together on an outcropping overlooking the forest. The moon hung heavy and silver above them. "Can I ask you something?" Isla said quietly. "Anything. Why did you wait so long for me? You're 40, Thorn. You could have had a mate, a pack, a normal life." He was silent for a long moment. "I had dreams," he finally said. "From the time I was 15, the moon goddess sent me dreams of a silver wolf with violet eyes. I knew you were coming, knew I was meant to find you, protect you, serve you." He turned to meet her gaze. "Knowing you existed made waiting easy, watching you discover your power these past weeks. Isla, there's nowhere else I'd rather be." "I'm not the goddess's chosen mate for you," Isla said carefully. "There are no fate bonds between us." "No," Thorn agreed, "which means if you choose me, it'll be because you want to, not because magic or destiny demands it." His hand found hers. "I would rather have your choice than fate's command." The bond snapped into place, not golden like the one with Matthias, but silver white, clean and strong and freely given. It felt like coming home. Isla kissed him as the moon witnessed their union, and in the distance, the Shadow Guard howled their approval. She was no longer the rejected Omega. She was the matriarch, surrounded by wolves who had chosen her, bound to a mate who had waited a lifetime to find her. But peace, as Isla was about to learn, was temporary. The scout smelled wrong. Isla sensed him before the Shadow Guard did, her matriarch abilities picking up the foreign scent carried on the wind. Forest smoke, embers, ozone, steel, the signature of Crimson Veil Pack, specifically of wolves who ran with Matthias Kane. "Kara," Isla said quietly, and the warrior was already moving, her form blurring as she shifted and vanished into the trees. She returned 15 minutes later, dragging a young beta by the scruff of his neck. He shifted back to human form reluctantly, eyes wide with terror, as he took in the massive wolves surrounding him. "Found him about a mile out, heading back to Crimson Veil at a run," Kara reported. "He'd been watching our territory for at least 3 days, based on the scent trails." Thorn stepped forward, his authority rolling off him in waves. "Who sent you?" The scout swallowed hard. "A Alpha Kane. He wanted to know if the rumors were true, if she—" His eyes found Isla and widened further. If she was really alive, if she'd really become what they're saying she became. "And what are they saying?" Isla asked, her voice calm and cold. "That an Omega died in the wildlands during the blizzard 2 months ago. But that something else woke up. Something powerful. The rogues that survived encountering your territory talk about a silver wolf the size of a house, about dire wolves that shouldn't exist anymore, about a scent that makes their wolves whimper and submit." He couldn't seem to stop talking, fear loosening his tongue. Alpha Kane thought they were just scared rogues exaggerating. "But I saw you. I saw all of you. Holy goddess, the stories don't do you justice." "Tell your Alpha," Isla said, her voice ringing with power she was still learning to control, "that Isla Grey is indeed dead. The matriarch has risen in her place. These are my territories now. If Crimson Veil wishes to challenge that claim, they're welcome to try. That's not all." The scout looked like he might vomit. "Alpha Kane is coming. He's gathering allies. He says you're an aberration, a threat to the natural order. He's bringing war, matriarch, at least 30 wolves, including Alpha Blackwood from the Iron Ridge Pack and Alpha Torres from Shadowmere. They march at moonrise tomorrow. 30 wolves, 3 allied packs, an army." The Shadow Guard bristled, ready to tear the scout apart, but Isla raised her hand. "Let him go," she commanded. "Let him run back and tell them what he saw. Let him spread the word about what awaits them." Kara released the beta, who scrambled backward, shifted, and disappeared into the forest at a dead run. "You know they'll come," Thorn said quietly once the scout was gone. "Good," Isla replied, her violet eyes blazing. "Let them come. Let them see what they created when they threw me away. I'm done hiding, Thorn. Done being afraid. If Matthias wants to challenge me for these territories, he'll learn exactly what he rejected." The Shadow Guard howled their agreement, and Isla felt her wolf rise within her, eager and ready. They came with the setting sun, 30 wolves strong, arranged in military formation at the border of Isla's territory. From her vantage point on a hill overlooking the valley, she could see them clearly. Matthias at the center, flanked by 2 other alphas she recognized from gatherings. Scarlet Thorn moved at his side like a red shadow, her scent of cinnamon, iron, and blood carrying even from this distance. The Shadow Guard stood at Isla's back, a wall of dire wolf muscle and power. Thorn stood at her right hand, his presence a comfort and a promise. "Last chance to run," Kara muttered. "We could disappear deeper into the wildlands, avoid the fight." "No," Isla said firmly. "No more running, no more hiding. They came to my territory. They'll face what they find here." She began walking down the hill, her pack falling into formation around her. As they moved, she shifted. the transformation now as easy as breathing, her massive silver-white form rippling into existence with barely a thought. The enemy army saw her coming and faltered. Even from a distance, her size was obvious. She stood at the shoulder as tall as a horse, glowing faintly in the dying light, marked with symbols of ancient power. Matthias shifted to human form as they approached, attempting to reclaim the dominant position. "Isla Grey," he called out, his voice carrying. "You've been declared rogue and marked for death. Surrender yourself for judgment, or we'll take you by force." Isla shifted back, standing naked and unashamed before the assembled packs, power radiating from her skin. "Isla Grey died in a blizzard 2 months ago, Alpha Cain. I'm what she became when you freed her from your pathetic excuse for a bond." She let her scent roll over them, lavender and morning dew and wildflowers backed by supernatural force that made several of the lesser wolves whimper. "I am the matriarch. These are my lands. You're trespassing." "Matriarch?" Matthias laughed, but there was uncertainty in his eyes. "There's no such thing. You're just an omega with delusions of—" Scarlet didn't wait for him to finish. With a snarl of rage, she shifted and launched herself at Isla, going for her throat in a move meant to kill quickly and brutally. Isla didn't even need to shift. She caught Scarlet mid-air with one hand, not paw, her fingers closing around the she-wolf's throat with supernatural strength. Scarlet's momentum died instantly. She hung there, struggling and gagging, unable to break Isla's grip. "You should have stayed in your lane," Isla said conversationally, then threw Scarlet backward like a rag doll. The she-wolf hit the ground hard, tumbling end over end, before coming to rest at Matthias's feet, dazed and whimpering. The enemy pack stared in shock. An unmated female in human form had just defeated a full-grown she-wolf without even trying. "Anyone else?" Isla asked mildly. That's when the Shadow Guard revealed what they truly were. They'd been holding themselves back, making themselves appear as large wolves, but nothing too unusual. Now, with their matriarch challenged, they dropped all pretense. 10 dire wolves shifted into their true forms, not the already large versions the scout had seen, but their full ancient power. Each one grew to match or exceed Isla's size. Kara's scars glowed silver. Finn's coat erupted with flames that didn't burn. Maya radiated healing light so bright it hurt to look at. Each member of the Shadow Guard revealed abilities that went far beyond normal werewolf gifts. They weren't just wolves. They were legends made flesh, old gods wearing mortal forms, the original children of the moon goddess herself. The enemy army broke. Wolves that had come for battle scrambled backward, dominance hierarchy completely forgotten in the face of primal terror. Several of the younger ones tucked tail and ran outright. The 2 allied alphas, Blackwood and Torres, stared in horror at what they'd brought their packs to face. Matthias stood frozen, his gray eyes locked on Isla, watching everything he'd rejected stand before him in its true glory. The scent of his regret hung acrid in the air. "Mercy," he whispered, then louder, dropping to his knees. "Mercy, matriarch. I was wrong. You were blind." Isla cut him off. "You were arrogant. You thought rank and tradition and physical dominance were all that mattered. You looked at me and saw weakness when you should have seen potential." She walked closer, her bare feet silent on the grass, until she stood directly before him. "You rejected me in front of 300 witnesses. You had me cast out to die. You chose ambition over your own mate." Tears ran down Matthias's face. I know. If I could take it back. You can't." Isla's voice was iron and ice. "That's the thing about choices, Matthias. You make them, you live with them." She looked past him to the assembled wolves. "But I'm not you. I won't rule through fear and cruelty. I won't punish wolves for following their alpha's commands." She raised her voice so all could hear. "I am the matriarch, the first bloodline, and these are my laws for these territories. No wolf will be ranked by their designation alone. Omega, Beta, Alpha, these are roles, not worth. Every wolf will be judged by their actions, their loyalty, their strength of character. Mates will be honored, not rejected. Power will serve the pack, not exploit it." She looked down at Matthias. "You wanted to know what justice looks like from someone you called worthless? Here it is. You'll live. You'll keep your position as Alpha of Crimson Vale, because your pack doesn't deserve to suffer for your mistakes. But you'll swear fealty to this territory and its laws. You'll spend the rest of your life knowing you rejected the most powerful wolf in 1,000 years because you were too foolish to see beyond rank. And you'll watch me be happy," she added more quietly. "You'll watch me rule with the mate I chose, and you'll know what you lost." Matthias bowed his head, broken and defeated. "I swear it. By blood and bond, I swear allegiance to the matriarch." One by one, the other alphas, first Blackwood, then Torres, bent the knee and swore the same oath. Their packs followed, 30 wolves acknowledging Isla as their superior in the oldest way their kind knew. As for Scarlet, Isla stripped her of her rank entirely, banishing her from the territories with a warning. Return, and the Shadow Guard would show no mercy. When the last of the enemy packs had departed, tails tucked and heads bowed, Isla finally allowed herself to shift back to human form. Thorn was there immediately, wrapping her in a cloak, his arms around her. "That was incredible," he murmured against her hair. "You were incredible." "We were incredible," Isla corrected, looking at the Shadow Guard who had reformed their circle around her and Thorn. "All of us. Together." And so Isla's journey came full circle, from silent, suppressed Omega to the matriarch of legend, from rejected and dying to powerful and crowned. She learned that true strength isn't given by rank or fate, but forged through suffering, choice, and the courage to become who you were always meant to be. The Crimson Vale Pack and its allies now bowed to her rule. The Wildlands, once a place of death and exile, became the heart of a new empire built on justice rather than hierarchy. And the mate bond she shared with Thorn grew stronger each day, freely chosen and fiercely protected. But as the next blood moon began to rise, casting its copper light across her territories, Isla felt a familiar stirring in her bones. Her wolf lifted her head, alert and wary. "Something's coming," her wolf said. "Something old. Something that's been sleeping even longer than we were." In the distance, from the deepest parts of the wild lands, where even dire wolves didn't venture, a howl echoed, ancient and hungry and utterly wrong. The Shadow Guard's ears perked up. Thorn tensed at Isla's side. "What is that?" Isla breathed. Thorn's expression was grim. The old stories spoke of other things the first matriarch fought, things that were sealed away, waiting for the bloodline to return and either renew the seal or break it. Did you enjoy Isla's transformation from rejected Omega to legendary matriarch? What did you think of her journey? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear which moment resonated with you most. Was it the brutal rejection? The breathtaking first shift? The final confrontation where she showed Matthias exactly what he'd lost? If you loved this story, please hit that like button and share it with friends who enjoy werewolf romance with empowered heroines and epic reversals. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss when we post the next chapter. Because trust me, you won't want to miss what happens when that ancient evil fully wakes. Isla's story is far from over. The Blood Moon brings challenges that will test everything she's learned, and the Shadow Guard's secrets run deeper than even they remember. Will the matriarch be strong enough to face what's coming? Can her newly forged bonds survive the trials ahead? Thank you for listening to this chapter of the Matriarch's Rise. We'll see you in the next chapter, where the real war begins.